Hey, before I start the video, just a quick update for anyone who's watching in my previous videos, and in case I misunderstood before, um, the Kickstarter exclusive stuff wasn't actually exclusive. I actually went back and reviewed the page, and I was wrong on two different points. I just want to make myself correct here for the future videos because I'm not re-recording my videos. So anytime I mention this, I apologize. Those facts later in the video are wrong. But I thought the malicious expansion was part of the Kickstarter stuff. It was not. It is the Unbroken expansion and the Gatekeeper expansion. They were the stuff that were available on Kickstarter along with the upgrade kit, which has all the 3D components and the additional map. So basically you get 10 killers and 10 survivors. And then a map and the 3D stuff with the Kickstarter stuff. The second correction was I thought that they were stretch goals that you were getting for free. They were not. This is a pre-order. What you were doing is you were ordering these two expansions before they were listed as separate expansions, as well as the upgradable stuff and the core game in one giant box. So there was never any actual exclusives or free stuff for the backers. They got it at a reduced price per the Kickstarter price, although if you find these on sale somewhere outside of their store, that's a different argument altogether. So yeah, it was the Unbroken expansion and the Gatekeeper expansion that were part of the original Kickstarter components of the all-in box that eventually got broke up into two expansions. The Malicious expansion was the third expansion that came out that had the board, so it had less killers and less survivors because they added a board in there. And then the Lightbringer is the fourth expansion that came out that had less killers and less survivors because it added some additional oath or offering cards instead. So yeah, I just want to apologize that as you listen to the rest of these videos, I might have mentioned these in the wrong order. I just assumed when they were on Kickstarter they were going to have, all the free stuff or their bonuses or unlocks or something like that. But yeah, again, they were just pre-order all in one box, and then later they released them in 3 separate boxes, so you could buy everything separately if you wanted to. All right, let's head into the video then. Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome back to some more Dead by Daylight, the board game. This is video part 3. In this video, we're going to go over the killers, their perks, and just kind of, there's 6 of them, and they have their special abilities, so it's going to be a little bit longer video for that. If you missed out part 1, we went over the overview of all the components, as well as looked at the rules and how to play the game. And kind of a little semi how to play by showing some actual interaction with the figures and the cards on the board. And then in video 2, we went over the board itself and looked at the different maps and what's on there, as well as the 6 survivors, their perks, and the item cards. That's why I separated this in video 3, because otherwise it's going to get very, very long as one video. So let's go ahead and hop into these guys. So much like the survivors, let's take a look at the board itself before we jump into the actual specifics of it. Up at the top, it's going to show we have a killer. These boards are a little bit bigger than the other one because they have an extra power spot down there. They have their name, difficulty. So there are 3 easy bosses, 3 hard bosses. And like I've said in the previous videos, the difficulty is kind of a general idea. Someone's 1 easy might not be the same as an easy for the other person or killer. They might not be like a 1-to-1 ratio, as well as per each player. Some of them might find 1 easy, might find another one not as easy, same thing with hard. Some of them might find 1 guy hard, might find that person even harder. So just kind of take it as a general idea. Up at the top, we have blood points. I love, again, that they have, starting with 4, they have a max of 12, so they get a lot more than the survivors. Plus, they also have 4 after your second turn, taking additional bonuses, just telling you can spend them as well. As a reminder, so all the killers will have a power. They have a second spot here that might have some additional passive abilities as well, or additional effects that they might have. Now, all of them have them. It just depends on who they are, what they do. Then they have their 3 perks. The purple one is their signature perk that only they have. The green ones are ones that they have built into their board, but they have also in the deck that anyone else could have, such as we have Enduring, and Tinkerer. So anyone else could get them if we want to mess around. That's also cool. It's not just the survivors that get to mix around and do that. The killers can do that as well. On the back side, we have killer interactions. So this is also fun. So if you're playing your killer, you can flip over another board and have access to this. They have occupying lockers, what you can do. The crows, the hex totems, and the generators. So the 4 different ones they can interact with. Now there are 4 other icons. They can't interact with the exit gates. They can't interact with the hooks outside of actually using the hooks, but you can't do anything to or for them. They can't interact with pallets directly this way. Basically, if a pallet's down, they can run into it and destroy it, but they can't interact with just sitting in a space. They can't pre-destroy it. And then they can't do anything with items. It's kind of nice that they can't just walk around getting rid of all the survivor stuff. And then they have just mentioning attacking a healthy survivor, or they'll all be dead by daylight. And then sacrifice and where sacrifice begins. If a survivor is wounded, killer picks them up, attempts to sacrifice them. Killer cannot pick a survivor that was wounded this round. And then how to do all that just as a reminder. And so it's fun that they have these on the back of each card. They could have just made a separate, excuse me, trying not to sneeze. A separate, like, one sheet. Oh, I just sneeze. But make sure you guys are not close to it. I forgot what I was saying, but yeah, no, it's nice that they have the different perks and stuff, so you can mix and match them as well too. And then again, the backs, it's nice that they could just make a rule, like a separate thing with just a rule, but it's like, hey, you have all these cards, so let's just flip them over and use those instead. It's very cool. So let's take a look at each of our different killers. We're gonna start with the Hillbilly, Max Thompson Jr. And I'm going to purposely, we're going to look at the 3 easy ones first, then we'll look at the hard ones, so we can kind of see what the difference are. So here's our miniatures for them. Very kind of detailed for what they can do. Obviously, they could have made them, like, super highly detailed, but I'm sure the more detailed you make stuff, more things, obviously they need to be bigger, or you need to spend more money to do that. Let's see what we have here. It says, the Hillbilly is a highly mobility killer, is able to cover large distances and wound survivors using his chainsaw. Try to stay near the center of the board where your leftover movement cards are most effective. The chainsaw can also be used for extra mobility, just not attacking. So cool. So that's neat to have a little thing in there that explains kind of how to play them a little bit more. The survivors did too, but theirs were more like, this guy likes to lead, this guy likes to move, but they didn't really have a tip for it. Alright, so we have his chainsaw power, so you can use this once per turn instead of interacting. Chainsaw, discard a movement card except weight to move along a card's path. When using the power, you cannot move along paths with pallets, breakable walls, or other components. The survivor in the space you enter becomes wounded. So interesting. So basically, this is very helpful for him to be able to move around a lot quicker. He has light boring for his first perk. Unlike other beasts of the fog, you have adapted to the light. At the end of the planning phase, reveal one of your set movement cards to gain a blood point. Interesting. So basically, instead of hiding, your opponents are going to know what you're doing first, but you gain blood points for it, so it might be worth it. Because then you can also discard to move that chainsaw, so even if they know where you're going, you can also have an extra movement out of it anyhow, so it's not that big of a deal. For free every turn, right? Giving them a little bit of extra information for you gaining extra blood points to take extra movements or do the other perks. He has enduring, nothing left to stand, let nothing stand in your way. When you would move along a path with a pallet, destroy the pallet and complete your turn as normal. You can still interact this turn. Just destroy pallets. Nice. And then Tinkerer. You are acutely aware of the smells and sounds of working engines. When a generator is completed, pick up and replace one of your set movement cards with a different card from your hand. Ooh. So if someone, not going to happen that often, but when it does happen, if a generator gets completed, during the opponent's turn, you can also change your mind on what you're going to do. It would have been a little bit more interesting to be like even maybe at a cost of one, but instead of having it be a working generator if it is a success. But still, this does help you because it's like, oh, I was gonna go red then blue, and all of a sudden then they completed a generator somewhere. You can be like, oh, I'm gonna instead of doing that, I'm gonna pick up one of these and I'm gonna go green instead and go a different direction because now that they've completed it, they're gonna maybe try and move somewhere else. So that's pretty cool. I think that's a really fun ability. Awesome. Let's see what we have up next. We have everyone's second most terrifying thing beyond clowns is the nurse. Especially if you've ever seen the movie Resident Evil, or Resident Evil nurses. Which are usually some of the creepiest ones, and they kind of have this. She's floating. That's pretty neat. Like her feet aren't actually touching the ground. Oh yeah, she has that thing. It's like a bone saw. I always love whenever they have these nurses as like haunted things or killer type things, right? It's always like the old timey nurses and doctors from like whatever, like the 40s or 50s or like it's never like a modern nurse. Like you're not just coming up seeing someone wearing like scrubs, right? Oh look, they have bluey scrubs on, or something like that, right? Or they have pink flower scrubs. It's always like the big, the white thing with the little nurse hat, and kind of the same thing you ever see ghosts, and they don't ever like all ghosts tend to always be like, oh, it's a Civil War person, or it's an old timey witch character, or this. And it's not like, oh, it's the business guy from down the street. Kind of funny. All right. Anywho, we have the nurse, Sally Smithson. Nurse's is a warping killer, able to blink through obstacles quickly and close gaps with her power. Spencer's last breath, which is her ability, doesn't wound survivors, but allows you to hold on to your weight movement and use it during a bonus turn. Consider Strider your main tool for hunting survivors. So cool. I like to have the little extra tip on how to play these guys, which is, I think, very helpful. Because the survivors are like, I need to get to the generators. That's my goal. Like, then interacting with other stuff. These guys are like, I don't get it. Not that you don't care about the stuff on the boards, but your thing is like, I need to know how to move around and do stuff. So it's kind of cool to give you little tips. Her special power is Spencer's last breath. Move to any connected space ignoring pallets and breakable walls. When using this power, you may also move against one-way paths. So this is pretty cool. So she can just move anywhere. Now, the difference here is, I just want to point this out. So his was also movement. It says discard a movement card to move along that card's path. But he cannot move through any spaces, but he can wound a survivor. So he gets to also move somewhere else, but he has to discard a movement card. She doesn't have to, but she doesn't get to wound anybody, right? So it's kind of like the trade-off. Each one has an extra movement thing. His costs an extra card to use. Hers doesn't. But she doesn't have to worry about, she doesn't hurt anybody. So it's interesting. Her Strider ability, you acutely sensitive to the breathing of your prey. At the start of your planning phase, choose a wounded survivor. They must play their movement card face up before you or any other survivor. Oh, yes, that could be very helpful, because then now you can see where they're going to move. And like, but it also does help everybody else, too. It would then, if they said they just have to play their space up, if they were turn 4, like if they're the fourth person to lay down their cards or flip them up or whatever, or play their cards, then you could have been like, oh, well, I still didn't know what they're doing, but not everyone else is, but since everyone knows what's going to happen. Interesting. Thanophobia. The courage fades in the face of undeniable mortality. When a wounded survivor would perform a skill check, they roll the danger dice instead. So basically, as long as they're injured, you can make them have a less than successful chance. And a nurse's calling. You are drawn to those in need of help. After survivor becomes healthy, gain 2 blood points. Cool. Doesn't really make sense necessarily, but hey, you saw someone get healthy, you're like, hey, I'm gonna heal them. Gain bonuses for helping them. Would have been more interesting to be like, and I don't know if it made gameplay sense, but it was kind of interesting to be like, you may heal a survivor to gain 2 blood points, right? So you could heal them, but you gain extra points so that you could do something else. Might have been interesting, but would have been also a weird ability for a killer to be healing people. If we, up next after the nurse, we have, oops, doesn't like to stamp there super well when I move this. We have the doctor, Herman Carter. So this is definitely a psychotic doctor, but I love he has it's like electricity beaming off his club, which is really cool. He's got like a burnt up arm, electricity burning off his arms, just to play with the electricity stuff. He's got like a big scarred up face. So he's probably one of them doctors that was like way back in the day, would have been like, I'm going to electrocute you to cure your whatever disease I think you have, your left-handedness or whatever. Says, the doctor is a Magnus-induced killer, able to use his power, Carter Spark, to incapacitate survivors. Overcharge is your primary tool for wounding survivors. Use Magnus to slow progression and build blood points, as you will need to use bonus turns to secure sacrifices. Alright, so what are his special abilities? So he does have Carter Spark. So he's going to hand out Magnus tokens, which are these little brains, I believe. They don't unfortunately tell you on there, and it doesn't show a symbol for it, which would have been super helpful. So it says, Carter Spark, choose one space or connected space. Each survivor in that space without the Magnus either spends a blood point or gains a Magnus. We did talk about this in the first video on the rules. Survivors already have Magnus either spend a blood point or become wounded. So basically, if you don't have the Magnus token, either you can spend a blood point to stay sane if he's trying to shock you, or you can gain a Magnus token. If you already have one, either you have to spend your blood point token or you become wounded. So at least you have some options. It's not like a forced thing ever, but you might not have blood points, and then you might be forced. Passive. Survivors of the Magnus roll the danger dice for all skill checks. On failure, they lose Magnus. The blood point cost of your killer's bonus turn is reduced by 1 for each survivor with Magnus. Oh, okay, cool. So what this does is 2 things. It's really neat for this passive effect. If you decide to get the Magnus, you might be like, if I did it, as long as I don't get hit with that ability again, it's not that big of a deal. And even that, I can always spend my blood point then instead. But then you always have to roll the danger dice, which has the worst results on it. It has 2 great successes, which are always great, because then you can always get 2 things for a generator, or if you're trying to escape, you have 2 chances to escape. But it also has 4 failures. So every time you get a failure, though, you obviously don't succeed at all. And then the killer gains a blood point. So it's kind of a big double-edged sword there. It says the cost of your killer's bonus, which is you spend 4, is reduced by 1 for each survivor. So if all 4 players ever become Madden, he gets just every turn, he can just spend a free extra bonus action. That's pretty nuts. What are his perks? Monitor and abuse meticulously in your approach, terrifying in your application. At the start of the cleanup, if there are no sacrifice survivors, gain a blood point. So just every turn he gains a blood point. And then he can potentially spend them even cheaper to gain extra bonuses. So he's going to get to move around a lot. Interesting. Overcharge. You are fueled by the hate for progress. After you damage a generator, a survivor in your space or connected space becomes wounded. So it's like you hit it and then like the lightning flung off it and hit somebody else. Which could be very interesting because you could move to a space, damage a generator, and then it could send a spark to a guy in another spot, which wounds them. Then you can move to that spot and take them on that spot. So it says you can't, because I think it's on the same turn, or is it you just can't? Oh, it's wounded this round. So even still, I guess no, you wouldn't. Even if you wounded them that way, you wouldn't be able to pick them up. It's anyone on that round. Otherwise, that'd be kind of a very mean thing to do. Overwhelming presence. You Your mere presence ignites panic among your prey. When a survivor in your space or a connected space uses an item, they roll the danger dice. On a failure, the item is discarded with no effect. Cool. So yeah, just if you have to use that. The perks are always good because you can spend them whenever you need to spend them. It's not like, oh, I have to spend this at the beginning of my turn, and then just basically players have the option to don't play item cards this turn, or they have to potentially sacrifice them. No, I can wait till they play an item, and then I can use it. So, cool. Alright, those are 3 easy ones. So it's basically movement guy around with a chainsaw a lot, does some killing stuff. We have the other one that moves around a lot that doesn't kill stuff as much. But yeah, it can like kind of mess with people. And this guy's going to end up having the extra little thing with tokens. Kind of introduces some of them token things on the board. Cool. Let's jump into our hard guys. I mean, kind of see what the difference between an easy and a hard killer is. So we have the Trapper, Evan McMillan, who's also one of the maps, McMillan Estate. So here he's got like a big, it's a big metal axe or what that is. Now, my only problem with this is that, and I get that some of these were probably like the first couple of guys in the video game, is that he looks obviously he has different weapons than the hillbilly, but he just reminds me too much of the hillbilly for right away. The Trapper is an area control killer. Apply pressure across the board by placing daily bear traps for survivors to step into. Use bear traps early to lock down key routes on the board. Avoid breaking walls when possible. Force survivors over your traps from opening. So again, there's walls on the board. You can opt to, as a killer, to move through and break. Survivors, unless they have a specific perk, can't get through those walls. So as long as you don't go through them, it's going to limit their options. There might be time you want to Kool-Aid magnet, break through the wall to get a sacrifice on them or whatever. But more often than not, you're probably going to want to just work around them. Alright, so what does he do? He, first of all, has his bear traps, which we do have tokens for. And he has 4 tokens for the bear traps. So he's placing a bear trap on a connected path without a pallet, breakable wall, or any other component. And this lists other components because there could be future games that let other players play different things on the boards. You may remove an existing bear trap to place a new one. When survivor moves on a path of the bear trap, they roll the danger dice. On a failure, remove the bear trap, and the survivor becomes wounded. If the survivor is already wounded, gain a sacrifice progress. Oh, dang. So if they're already hurt, if that bear trap is blocking their only route, they have to risk it. And then you can get a free sacrifice without having to worry about taking them to the hook. So that's pretty cool. But again, this is where he's going to manipulate the board by placing them down and trying to block the directions they're going to go. And you could potentially have a wall in one spot, bear traps on the other, so they have no choice but to do it. Or maybe you locked off an area where it's like, you lock off an area that has one of the last generators or one of the exit gates. Or survivors might have to be like, hey, I'm going to just risk taking the damage for it, to get rid of it. Like, I'd rather roll it and get a thing, and then on my turn I can use a item or heal myself, but it gets it off the board. But the thing is, he can keep playing them. It'd be different if it's like he has 4 bear traps and that's all he has for the entire game. If he had a limited supply, but since he technically has an unlimited supply, he can only have 4 at a time. But if he had a limited supply of the amount he could use it, he only has 8 to use the entire game. Then sacrificing himself to get rid of it would make more sense. Interesting. So you have brutal strength. Your great strength allows you to shred through your prey's defenses. After you attack a healthy survivor, move them along any path. If you move them along through a pallet, breakable wall, destroy the pallet or wall. Nice. So after you hurt them, you can still move them along to somewhere else, to keep them from running away. That's pretty cool. Unnerving presence. Your presence alone instills great fear. When a survivor in your space or connected space perform a skill check, they roll the danger dice instead. Always a mean thing to do. And then agitation. You get excited in the anticipation of hooking your prey. After you attack a healthy survivor, move along any path. So cool. So this guy's basically going to be able to like manipulate himself around the board very much. And then also forcing people to take danger roll dices, which are going to potentially get you more blood points, it gets you more turns. So I kind of see why he's hard, because the other guy's abilities are like move or activate this thing and do a special effect. His are like, I'm going to place these around the board, and they're not going to do anything unless people get rid of him. So again, it's saying, yeah, I consider he's harder than the easy guys, but I don't think he's necessarily like the most difficult. Another thing I do like is, at least as of now, none of the perks, even the signature perks for survivors as well, but these guys, they don't do anything with their powers. That's what I was kind of worried about, because it'd be because then like when eventually you can replace all three of them, you kind of get to that point where it's like, oh, but this has an ability that only his thing interacts with, so why would you ever replace that? I could also see, that's also why it would be interesting if they ever just made like an extra bonus pack of cards or put it in one of those things. All the extra signature perks as well, because it could potentially be used with anybody, and they make the game really interesting. Again, also that makes it so like none of the boards really matter for the survivors. If anything can be replaced with anything else. But it would also be kind of interesting, because some of these might be neat to play as some of the other killers. Alright, up next we have the Wrath, Philip Ojamo. So this is one of the guys I know of from playing. I haven't played the video game a super ton, but I remember this guy clanging his bell around. I remember him being kind of like one of the starting type guys. So he has the Wrath as a stealth killer, able to threaten the entire board simultaneously with his power, Wailing Bell. Use Wailing Bell as your first interaction. If you miss a survivor, you can set up for your second move attack. Using the bell is slow, so prioritize scoring 2 normal attacks when you can. Shadowborn can make up for lost time. So yeah, he's going to be so it does sound like he's going to be a little bit harder to play. So Wailing Bell, move directly to a space that is not connected to your space. So he can move around the board using his ability, but you just can't go to a space connected to where he's at. So it's going to take very good planning for that. Because if you play a red card, you can move, and you move to a different spot around the way, you're not going to probably be moving to where you're at. But since you can also move, so you move your first time, right? And then your first interaction, you can zip somewhere else around the board. You gotta hope that wherever your second movement card is an area that actually has a spot you can use it for, or it's going to be beneficial. But it does give you a lot more options to move around the board. But unlike the other guys, he doesn't have anything that kind of directly interacts with the other people. So interesting. We have Shadowborn. You have a keen vision of darkness of the night. At the end of the planning phase, place a third movement card. This will allow you to take a third turn. You cannot take a killer bonus round. So cool, you can spend 2 to take an additional forced turn. But now the difference there is between that and the second bonus turn. The killer bonus turn is the killer bonus turn. You've already taken your first 2 movements after you've already seen all the survivors where they went and you moved, so you can opt to be like, if I do this, I can move here and do this action. With Shadowborn, you just have to plan a third time very well. But again, you can always use Wailing Bell on your second turn then instead. So very interesting. Bloodhound. Like a hound, you smell traces of blood at a great distance. After you sacrifice a survivor, they will lose a blood point and you gain a blood point. You may still gain a blood point even if they do not have any to lose. So you're not stealing theirs, you're just losing and gaining one. Cool. Yeah, so you can get extra points for that. So you can use your extra bonuses a lot better. And then Predator. You possess an acute tracking ability. At the end of the planning phase, choose a survivor. They discard their set movement cards and replace it with a new one. Interesting. So yeah. So I can definitely see why his skills here are going to make him a little bit harder. Because he just kind of wants to move around and then be able to use his 2 abilities to either have an extra movement or to mess with your opponent's movement. But yeah, he doesn't have anything that, like, does extra damage or anything like that. So yeah, kind of interesting. So he wants to try to be, but you're not going to know where he's at around the board. It's going to make him hard. It's a whole stealth thing. It's going to make him harder to deal with. Alright, then our last killer is the Hag. Lisa Sherwood. So the shell shriveling up. And I don't know if they picked these particular killers and even the survivors of that note because they were like the initial ones from the beginning of the game when the game came out, like they're the first bunch of characters, or if the survivors might have been that, but maybe the killers were some of them might not have been. I don't know the exact timelines. But it also just could have been because they were like more of the iconic ones or some of the favorite ones, or just some of the, again, not unlockable ones, you know. The hag is a cursed killer, able to place phantasm traps and then teleport them upon activation by using her power. Place a phantasm trap every turn if you're able, and Praetors are rune generators. Not only phantasm traps generate a lot of blood points, but they'll often give you free or cheap attacks. Alright, so she has Blackened Catalysm, lets you place phantasm traps, and she has 6 of those, right? Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. So there's 10 or 11 rooms generally, so she can place them in almost any single room. Again, even just prioritize putting them in the generators or the exits where they're going to keep wanting to go back. She has place a phantasm trap in your space. If there is a hex code in your space, gain a blood point. No more than 1 phantasm being in space. So cool. You can gain blood points just by dropping these down. Passive. When a survivor enters a space with a phantasm trap, remove the trap and that survivor rolls a skill check die. You may then choose to gain a blood point or spend a blood point equal to the number shown on the die to move directly to the trapper's space and interact with the survivor in space. Since the skill check, if there is 0, you can teleport and interact for free in this case. Okay, cool. So they're going to roll a die, and whatever number they roll, you can either choose to gain that many blood points. So again, they hit your trap, you gain extra blood points, you can use your skills a lot more. Or you can spend that amount to then teleport to that space and interact with them so you get a free hit on them. Or if they're wounded, you can just sacrifice them. That's kind of cool. If it's a 0, then you can do it for free. Because there's no reason not to at that point. That's pretty cool. And if you could combine that with forcing them, like, just as an example, did we not have... Oh, it's if you're in your... Yeah, so, like, imagine if you combined it with this one. Surround your space or connected space perform a skill check, they roll a danger dice instead. So if you're in there in a space next to them, or in the same space even, you could pay 1, force them to roll a danger dice. They're probably going to fail. You get a free teleport and interact to them to hit them. That'd be kind of mean. Again, you have to be really close for that to happen, but still be interesting. Her first perk is the Third Seal. Your dark powers muddy the survivor's senses. At the start of the planning phase, discard a movement card. During this round, copies of that movement card used by survivors do not move them. They do not move. They cannot interact. Oh, dang. I mean, it costs 3, but you should be gaining a bunch from your placing your traps down as well as them landing on them. Because then whenever time they do it, you can pick them back up and keep placing them back down. So that's pretty crazy. But yeah, that could definitely stop someone. We have Devour Hope. The false hope of survivors ignite your hunger. At the start of the cleanup, if a generator was completed this round, you can take a killer bonus turn. You can only take 1 bonus per turn, so you can't take an additional one. And then Ruin. Your presence bleeds into the environment, accelerating natural deterioration. At the start of the planning phase, remove the progression from a generator, as long as there are no survivors in that generator space. Cool. So that's kind of neat. So she has all the stuff that happens, like what's going on around her. She doesn't have an active, like, I can do this to do this. It's basically beginning of your turn, she can potentially stop you from playing cards, or if they decide to progress the generator, if there's no one in there, she can go ahead and stop them, but she has to do that right off the bat. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. And then the other one's just, yeah, if a generator happens to be complete, she gets extra turns to move around. So very, very interesting. Alright, so that's what we have for our killers. We're going to look at our killer perks. Alright, so we have a bunch of the killer perks that are the exact same ones as the ones on the cards we just saw. So I'm just going to go over them quick. Overcharge, Overwhelming Presence, Devour Hope, Ruin, Enduring, Tinkerer, A Nurse's Calling, Thanaphobia, Agitation, Unnerving Presence, Bloodhound, and Predator. So then we can kind of mix and match and make your own killers as you would like. And again, more expansions give you a bunch of cooler other abilities. Try to see what you could mix with their purple ones and their powers as well. Then we have a bunch of brand new ones. We have, I think, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, 12 brand new ones. We have Monstrous Shrine. Your favorite terror of the hooks has aroused the entity's interest. After sacrificing a survivor, there are no other survivors in space. Gain 2 blood points. Spies from the shadow. The entity's servant speaks to you. When a crow is revealed, gain a blood point. That's kind of neat. Just a straight passive. The thrill of the hunt. If false hope, a survivor fills you with excitement. When survivor leaves your space, move with them. Neat, so you can follow them around. Bitter Murmur. A bitter whispers of the entity guide before. After you move along a one-way path or breakable wall, move along any path before interacting. Deer Stalker. You know how to track weakened prey. A wounded survivor leaves your space, they roll the danger dice. On failure, they remain in place and cannot interact this turn. Insidious. Unlock your stealth ability. When you would attack a healthy survivor, if you have not moved this turn, pick them up instead. No one escapes death. A dark force drives you when you are prey on the verge of escaping. At the end of your turn, if the exit gates are powered up, take a killer bonus turn. Oh, yeah, cool. So you've had one like that for the generators. Whispers. You have a rudimentary understanding of the entity's voice. At the start of the planning phase, choose a survivor. That survivor can either choose to spend a blood point or place their movement card face up. Sloppy Butcher. You know where to hit the mark to make them bleed. You know where to hit to make them bleed. When a survivor attempts to heal, they roll a danger die instead. Unrelenting. When the power motivates you to continue the hunt. After interacting with a survivor in your space, interact with a different survivor in your space. Ooh, a double hit. Now imagine that with like the Hag, right? Spend your points, move around, get some double kills. Distressing. After horrifying emanation strikes at a supernaturally long distance. After a survivor moves into a space containing a locker, they interact with a locker. Oh, so if they move into a space with a locker, they are then forced to hide in the locker. So then you know where they're going to be. You still have to go deal with it, but keeps them from interacting with something else. That's kind of cool. And then Iron Grasp. A powerful force grasp on survivors causes an escape to be nearly impossible. After survivor rolls a dice, during a sacrifice attempt, they reroll all skill check dice. Oh, dang. Unfortunately, though, you only get 1 blood point if there's a failure. If they roll 3 failures, you don't get 3 blood points. But still, it's like you can make them roll 4 dice, and then guarantee, reroll all your dice again, just in case. It's very cool. It'll be very interesting to see like what you can do with the other killers, and mix them together. And again, even though like these are hard, some of the expansions, the hard might be a lot harder. They might have more difficult or intricate abilities. And I will say this because there is, there's one guy that's he's the Guardian, I think he's called. He has 3 knights, so he has multiple miniatures on the board they're going to be able to do stuff and interact with. There's the twins in a different set that have 2 different miniatures, which I think have different movement abilities. Those are going to be a little bit harder than some of the other ones. And then there's, in the last expansion, there's guys that actually drop a bunch of extra different tokens that have the same objective colors. So there's one that drops extra blue tokens, one that drops extra yellow tokens that are going to, kind of manipulate the board a little bit. and mess up what you're trying to do with some of the interaction stuff. So I can definitely see why there are, again, degrees of difficulty of hard and degrees of difficulty of easy. So like the doctor on here is easier than like the hag or the trapper maybe, but he's harder than I would say the nurse, because the nurse just gets to move around. The hillbilly just to move around. The doctor has to use a special ability in certain spots. But yeah, so it's still kind of fun. Again, they could have done a different system where they went like 1 to 5. But again, I always think even still that's subjective, because again, one person's 3 might not be another person's 3, depending on if they understand how the character works or how to manipulate stuff. So yeah, very interesting. That is what we have for Dead by Daylight, the board game. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Come back, check out all the expansions. Lots of really cool stuff. I think in the upcoming things, more killers, more survivors are basically the 2 things we're getting. With the couple of expansions as some of the extra materials and stuff. I can definitely see adding some, like if they made an expansion for this that didn't even have a killer or a survivor in it, was just extra bonus stuff. Would be kind of cool. Like, here's some extra items, here's some extra perk cards. Maybe some other different element that was been added to the game, or adding additional mode. I wonder. Definitely, I think something people are going to question is, can we play 2 killers against other players? Can we play more than 4 players? Like, if we buy a second core deck, can we play 8 killers? Or 2 killers versus 8 players, which is something the game does. It's not going to say you can't. It's going to be very chaotic based on the map size. But yeah, could be some interesting game modes again. Maybe someone may have also made an automated killer mode. There's definitely things I might have to check out and see some other modes. Maybe do a video on that. Till then, see you guys later. Bye.